Okay, today we are going to be doing these mushrooms. I have cropped the picture. This is our reference photo, but we're only doing it from about here down. And I want to show you the paper that I'm using. So normally I like to use the Arch watercolor paper, but we're going to be using this watercolor paper. It is cropped 8x8. I have put a 1" by 1" tape around the perimeter of the picture, so it will make it really 7x7 essentially on the inside of that space. I'm going to go ahead and begin by tracing. We'll fast forward through this tracing, but a few notes here on tracing because it's important. So one thing to remember, I am using carbon paper. You can get carbon paper on Amazon at most art supply stores. And when we do that, we want to do it, this is the paper that I want to transfer it to. I want my shiny side down. I want the carbon to be touching the paper. I want my reference photo right here, and I want my reference photo over top of that. I tape my reference photo down so that it won't move around. And then I take, I've got a black and white reference photo. I take typically a red or pink pen, and I begin to trace. So I'm going to go ahead and trace all of this in on this mushroom. I don't really know the name of this mushroom in particular, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty poisonous. From what I understand, it's a very poisonous mushroom. And not the happy kind of poisonous. One that you would not want to eat. But these particular mushrooms, I don't know if you've painted them or drawn them before, they are very, very fun to paint and draw. And they just look so happy. I mean, they remind me of, you know, I am a child. I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s, and Smurfs were definitely a thing. And this reminds me a lot of the Smurfs. And we could do this really loose and playful. I'm going to do a combination between loose and playful. I'm getting a lot of detail into my reference photo, as you can see here. I don't know if this is water, a water droplet, or just a white droplet here. There's a little bit of a reflection happening here. I think we have gotten there. And as you can see, let's see, I missed a little spot over here. And, you know, I'm going to kind of keep it dark in here. I'm going to put a fern in right here. Maybe this little flower I see back here. We'll play with it. We'll do the background together. So don't you worry there about that. And there's lots of like moss and lichen and ferns and all sorts of fun stuff over here. And we'll get to that. We've got our little 7x7. I've got my paints. I'm using my paints from the Winsor & Newton brand. I've got my brushes, my water, and my tray here. Now, what I want to do is take a really good look at my reference photo with color. So I want to begin with this red that I see, and I think that it is just a plain red that I'm going to begin with. And I want to really, part of me wants to do wet on wet. I don't know that that's going to work. I think actually I need to use my round 6 with this if I want to do it. So I'm going to just begin with this round 6. So anywhere that I've got the little spots, I'm going to ignore that. And I'm going to bring water into all of these other places. Now this little lip right here is kind of white, so I'm going to just let that be what it is. I actually see a little bit of a tiny yellow happening in there. Let's see. I may try to bring that in. So what we're doing is I'm getting this paper really wet where I want the water to carry my red, but I'm going to try something. I love to experiment while you're on with me. I'm going to pick up a lot of raw sienna on my brush. You can see me grabbing that here. And just I'm going to hit that on the edge right here. And that's already wet, so it's carrying a little bit of that yellow in and up. I'm going to pick up that red once again. I'm really getting that red in here, and I'm going to start up here now. And I'm going to bring in the red anywhere that I think I see. And again, we got the paper wet, so we're just moving this pigment all around, avoiding the places where we want it to be white or stay white. This is a really fun little tutorial. As you can see, we're really getting in here nicely. Just moving that pigment all over. Okay, and we are gonna let that dry, and we are gonna move on to these other guys over here. And we're just gonna do that exact same thing, right? We're going to take our water and we're gonna move it around anywhere where we want the red and a little bit of that yellow to be. Just avoiding the places where we are trying to keep it white. And again, I do see a little bit of this raw sienna that I just want to gently bring in right here. It's a nice little edge. Gonna get a little stronger pigment and maybe bring it in a few places up here on this top one. Just want that color to be a little bit richer, a little bit brighter. There's like a highlight here in the middle, and I'm avoiding that spot. And I'm going to do that same thing on this mushroom. Now, there's a shadow under here. We'll come back and fill that in. So don't worry, we'll get that shadow in there. But for now, we're just kind of playing with that. Okay, so we've got 2 tops done. We're going to do the same thing on this third one over here. Again, I'm bringing in the water, and we've got a dirty brown, not so much yellow happening. So I'm going to use my burnt umber on this one. Instead of raw sienna, I'm going to give it a little burnt umber edge because it's just a little browner. And I like that look. And we're going to pull this down around here. Again, just avoiding anywhere we want to keep those like white little dots and letting that fill itself in. Now I'm going to get this tiny little guy down here, and we're going to, again, do the exact same thing, keeping that wet on wet technique going. Picking up my red. There's not really a yellow spot on this one. Because we don't see the underside of that mushroom the way we do in the upper ones. Okay, so that needs to dry. And while those things are drying, I think we can come in. I'm looking at the underside of this mushroom right here. I'm going to give that a burnt umber kind of, I think, look. So what I want to do is I want to get my burnt umber. I might pick up just a tiny bit of Van Dyke Brown, move that in here, and get that wet. And I'm going to just bring that color underneath. We're just mapping some color down right now. We can always come in and bring in more color later, but for the moment, we're doing that. I'm going to bring some lines in here. Nope, that's getting a little red in there. It's okay. And picking that back up. I'm going to need to darken this up over here, but for now we can bring it in right here as well. And let's see. I'm going to bring this down here. And kind of move it around in here. See it on this side and the side right here. And this guy is pretty dark, so I'm going to need to darken this spot up down here, but again, I'm just color mapping. I'm bringing this color in and down. See it coming in down here. And here. And I've got, of course, I'm bleeding that red in here. I did not mean to do that. I'm going to have to pick that up. And when I say pick that up, I mean I'm picking up the color. So I'm taking a little, you can do this with a napkin, or you can do it with a paper towel. I use toilet paper. It's the quickest, easiest thing for me to grab, and voila, that's fixed. I'll come in and fix a little bit more of that in a bit. So now these colors are down. Now there's some places, like I can get some, all right, there's a shadow here and there's a shadow right here, and that's got a little bit of violet. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's a little bit of a violet color. So I'm going to pick up my Winsor Violet and I'm going to just drop that into a few places around here. And this is pretty dark right here. So just allowing that shadow color to come down, it's creating that shadow look. And I see it in a few spots over here. So I want to be a little bit more precise on this top one. And I just see it in some spots. So I'm just gonna pull that in and around, kind of where I see it as being just needing to add that color in a bit. So it's kind of underneath these guys here. And that really adds a nice depth to those mushrooms. Now that you've got the purple shadow in here too. So again, I'm coming down and pulling that shadow in. And I'm doing it while it's still wet. So that color is going to bleed around a little bit, and you can't really control that. And honestly, that for me, that's part of the fun, is that I know I can't control that particular aspect of it. Now I want to grab some burnt umber. I want to play with under the underbelly in here that I'm seeing, and pulling that darker burnt umber in right in here. And there is a bit of a shadow. I'm going to extend that shadow kind of over like that. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit of it from the middle point. I want it to look a little bit more like shadow. But you can see still that color is still there. Okay, now there's some darker spots in here. So again, I'm going to pick up that burnt umber. I think, honestly, we might even have a little bit of green that I want to mix into my burnt umber. I don't remember what color this is per se, but I'm going to get a little bit of that green in here. And we're just going to make those spots that we see and really give some life to these spots on our mushrooms that are just hanging out right here and here. All right, so these mushrooms are taking shape absolutely deliciously on our paper, and we are going to just let this dry. So we are going to let this dry, and we're going to come back and we're going to fill in with some moss down here. We're going to bring this in, but we got to let it dry to get to that place. Okay. This is dry enough in some places that we can begin to start to bring in this background, the green background. So what I want us to take a look at is we're going to work on this green over here. So in between here as well, we're going to keep it loose. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my very large round 16 brush, and the color I'm going for is, I think I'm going to use a combination of this green from my Winsor & Newton. I forget the name of it, but I'm mixing it over here. And I'm going to add some olive to that color. So I'm going to pick up olive, and there we go. So it's dark and mossy, but I want to maintain kind of that olive color. So I'm going to bring that in here. All right, so we've got quite a bit of that down. I am going to go ahead and bring some black into this corner over here. I'm going to darken it up over here. And I do also want to take some of this and I want to bring it under here, the black, bring it under this little mushroom guy and along the side of my mushroom. He's kind of in this little quarry black area down here, so you can see kind of what that looks like down here. Just bringing that all in. So immediately putting this darker black into the green around it, it helps bring the mushroom forward. Again, I'm going to add some more over here. And you can see that on the side of this mushroom right here, there's this little bit of green-black shadow that's happening right here, and it kind of comes down in front right here, and it comes up to here. And I just want to add that in. Again, we're adding that depth that's bringing it forward, and it is over here, this green. And I added the black while the green was still wet. So it gives you this black green color without being too dark. And I might decide I want to darken it up even more actually, but for the moment I want this color to be in here, and I'm just going to add some additional spots over here, and it is pretty dark right here, so I want to make sure I get that in here. This is super dark right here. So as you can see, that is really kind of bringing out the colors that we have happening. Now I'm going to rinse off my brush, and I am going to pick up my round 6 once again, and I want to add just a little bit more over here. So I'm going to take this burnt sienna, and it's got I'm giving it a little bit of green, and I'm mixing that kind of together. And I definitely want to bring that in on this side here and here, over here. And I'm going to darken it up here. And I'm adding some more brown kind of under here. And that brown, I want to bring it under here. And yeah, down there. Okay. And, you know, I do also just want to pick up a little bit more color here. And raw umber right here. Now, let's have fun with some of the details. Mushrooms have begun to dry. You can see it's not as bright as I want it to be. So for instance, I'm going to grab some of this red and I'm going to sharpen that up in here. I really want my red to look brighter and sharper in some of these spots over here. So that's really what I'm doing, is brightening that up in those places. I'm going to put more purple up here, but at the moment I just want to focus on this red. So we got the red coming in, and we need more red over here. Again, I'm kind of avoiding the highlight that I see on the reference photo. I'm going to let that kind of just stay. And again, I do definitely for sure want more purple shadow up here, but at the moment I'm going to hold off on that. I think for the most part, this looks pretty good with my red. Maybe a little bit more over here. But again, for the most part, I'm really satisfied with the way this has come out. Now, I do need red over here a little more. Okay, now I'm going to pick up my violet, rinsing my brush, grabbing some violet. Definitely strong violet needs to happen right here. And yeah, that's going to come down. It's going to do what it needs to do. And I want very strong violet up here too. I don't want this one to bleed as much into the red, so I'm going to be a little bit careful with how much I touch it over there, but it needs to get a little bit into that. But you can see we've got that nice violet shadow, and I want that shadow to be nice and violet over here under this guy too. So I love making the shadow violet like this. It adds so much depth and color that we have happening, and you can just see how that's been shaded by the mushroom. So that brings it up nicely. I also want to grab some more of this Van Dyke brown and just, you know, I want the shadow over here to be a little bit more pronounced on the side of this mushroom. And I'm being slightly sloppy with my brush strokes, and I feel okay about that. Sometimes you want, the sloppy brings in this loose little look, and sometimes it's just what you need. I'm sharpening it up or under here a bit more. And down here. Okay, and we've kind of got some, we need a shadow along this side, and can come up here a bit more. I'm gonna just pronounce my line under this lip of the mushroom a little bit more. Again, these are just little minor things, little minor details that can really make a difference and add depth in the long run. I'm darkening up my shadow under here as well, and I'm gonna add a little bit of water and bring that down here like so, and a little bit going in there. Okay, so that is just bringing that out a little bit more. Now I want to focus on these ferns that are a light, I'm not entirely sure what color it is, but I know that we need to add a lot of yellow. So I'm going to add a whole lot of yellow to this green to get a brighter, more vibrant color happening. And again, I'm not quite sure what the outcome of this is going to be, but this is just at least brighter. And that brighter green helps us to add depth to this. So you can see that this is standing out because it's a highlight. I'm going to bring it, this fern here. I don't want to touch that purple, it will bleed into it. I've already touched it just a touch too much. Okay, so back here does need to dry before I can bring that in, but we're getting very, very close. I think I can bring in maybe a little bit more of this color in here. I don't actually love this color, but I just did it, so we're gonna go with it. I don't necessarily love this color for this. In fact, we're just gonna, you know what? We're just gonna pick that all up. See, you can fix things that you don't like. Sometimes the fix isn't as easy as you would like it to be, but it was still wet enough that I could pick up that color. There's a color, I can't quite figure out what the color is. Maybe it's my olive green. That's more like it. It's not quite right, but that is more of what I was trying to go for. All right, there we have it. That is fantastic. That nice, strong color happening right there. And again, the black is not quite enough. And that's over here. I do want to sharpen this up some more. And it will in some ways help it feel like a little bit of a vignette, which could be really fun. It's not exactly a vignette that we are going for, that we have, but it's a fun little, just kind of allowing it to have that look is really delightful. I've got this nice little vignette that is beginning to really shape up. Now I want to keep this just a light green in the background. I'm gonna go to the hooker green and pull in some yellow. Got my color over here and rinsing off my brush so I can pick up a good amount of yellow and mix it in here. Probably not quite enough. A little more yellow. Okay, that's a little better. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that green back here. So it's still a nice forest color. What a fun picture we have. Do you like how this one has taken shape? I certainly do. And you know, we've got one final task. Well, actually I've got two things. There is a detail that I want to go back and catch. Do you know what I'm going to say? That's that little tiny guy down here in the corner. I haven't forgotten about him. He has this little greenish shadow down here that we just want to get kind of like that. See? There we go. Little shadow happening right there. I might need a little bit more black under here. Right? Okay. Now, the very last thing that I would like to do with you, yeah, I know it's still wet, but this is the most fun part, right? It's taking the tape off. All right, look how fun. This is our watercolor time. Fungi. Did you have fun today with your fungi? I sure did. I really enjoyed painting with you. I hope you loved this tutorial and let me know how it went for you.